It was the summer or spring of 2008. I was 15. Me and my 3 friends lived in a small town with not many busy streets. During the summer nights, we would hang out by this old shed near one of the back roads in our town. We usually would smoke weed behind the shed and get stoned. The first few weeks of the summer were weird. We had seen a guy for a few weeks in what looked like a late 90s Toyota minivan pulls up on the side of the road near the shed. Whenever we see him on the side of the road, he would never get out of his vehicle. He would just sit there. One night, on a Saturday, I think, we did the same thing as usual, went to the shed, got stoned. When the same guy in the minivan pulled up, we didn't think anything of it. About 30 minutes passed by and we hear a car door open and close and hear footsteps close by. We saw the guy walking towards us. Me and my friends had started to walk the opposite direction, and as soon as we did, the guy had started to run. Me and my friends booked it back to my house. My house is only about a block away. While we were running, I had caught a glimpse of the guy. He was middle-aged and looked homeless. We ran until we reached my house, adrenaline running through our veins. When we got inside, my mom wasn't home. We locked the door and heard knocking at the door. We called the police, and when they arrived, the dude was gone. The police asked us for a description of the dude, and I told them what he looked like and what car he drives. Apparently, he'd been seen with little kids that had gone missing. We told my mom, and she never let us go back to that shed. I go for a short run every night, right after sundown when it's finally cool out. I always take the exact same route, a loop through a quiet and sparsely populated neighborhood, and I now realize how easy of a target that made me. A short section of the route passes by an unlit park. A couple of weeks ago, I'd seen a guy hanging out behind a truck that was parked next to the entrance, and it was so unusual to see someone else up there that I decided to be extra cautious, turn around, and head back home. I didn't get close enough to get a good look at his face. A few days later, I saw what looked like the same guy by the park again. I figured I was probably just being paranoid, but I decided to turn around again just in case. I hadn't noticed any activity by the park in the last several days, so I resumed my normal route and didn't even think about the guy I'd seen there. Then last night, as I was passing by the park, I had this inexplicable feeling that I was being watched. I couldn't spot anybody nearby, but the park extends into pitch black darkness, so someone could easily hide there unseen. I decided to just keep running, look confident, and try to hurry past the park as quickly as I could. Suddenly, I smelled a strong wave of cologne in the air. That immediately put me on edge. And I'm pretty grateful he was wearing it, so it tipped me off. After I smelled it, I had no doubt in my mind that there was someone nearby. But still, I didn't see any movements in front or on either side of me, and I was afraid to turn around. Immediately past the park, there's a bend in the road, there's a house on the corner, and as you turn down the road, the house has lots of tall bushes in front yard. I normally run right past those without even thinking of it, but since my gut instinct was blaring like a siren, I quickly moved to the middle of the street as I rounded the corner. I shot a glance behind me to see if anyone had actually been nearby. I saw a man slowly walking through the front yard of the house on the corner, looking towards me. He paused behind the bushes, as if trying to remain hidden. I could see his jeans and a pair of black and white sneakers, but little else. His slow footsteps were so creepy that I can't get the image out of my mind, as if he was trying to be as quiet as he could, like a cat stalking its prey. If I hadn't made the split decision to run into the middle of the street and away from the yard, I would have been within grabbing distance. I don't know how I acted so quickly. Thanks, adrenaline. I turned on the flashlight on my phone, aimed it right at the bushes, hoping it'd startle or blind him long enough for me to get some distance between us, and started sprinting at full speed down the road. It was probably the fastest I've run in my life. At the end of each block, I glanced behind me to check if the man was there. Fortunately, I lost sight of him. If he decided to sprint after me, I'm not sure what I would have done. From what I could make out, this guy was at least a foot taller than me. By the time I got home, the adrenaline had dissipated, and I was shaking with fear. I couldn't sleep at all last night. What scares me the most about the whole thing is that I'm 99% sure this was the same guy I'd seen hanging out in front of the park recently. And now I can't shake the idea that he'd been watching me and calculating the right timing and path to try to sneak up behind me. He knew that I always ran past there around the same time. The thought that he was probably watching me from the darkness in the park last night before quietly moving out of it and starting to follow me makes me sick. Needless to say, I won't be running past that park at night anymore, or running alone at night, period. The terror I felt when I turned around and saw the guy's shoes slowly moving behind the bushes and his head facing me is like nothing I've ever felt before. I live in a small town, the kind where almost everyone knows each other. And it also really creeps me out to think that this might have been someone I've seen around town in the past. Part of me wishes I could have gotten a better look at his face for the police report. Another part is glad that I didn't, since that image would no doubt haunt me. This happened about a year ago. There were so many terrible factors working against me that night. I'm astounded I got away unscathed, at least physically. This all begins when I'm at my friend's apartment, who lives in a really rough part of town. In a series of poor decisions that night, I decided to get belligerently drunk and take a few pills of God knows what. I know. Safe to say, after a solid night of partying, around 4 a.m., I was not in the right state of mind. My drug-addled brain decided that instead of staying the night at my friend's apartment like I normally would, I wanted to Uber back to my own apartment. My friend's apartment had 2 separate entrances and exits to the buildings. One in the back, unlit parking lot of the building, and one facing the street. They had 2 sets of keys for each door, and I only had keys to the one in the back of the apartment. Since my Uber would obviously arrive at the street and the door in the front of the building locks itself behind you, I exited this way when the driver was soon to arrive. Looking back, standing outside that apartment, I realized I looked like the easiest target on the planet. I'm a small, petite female in my early 20s, and I can hardly stand upright. I'm using a street lamp to prop myself up, and not doing a very good job at that either. The light was basically a beacon for any nearby predator saying, "Come get me!" I'm not paying attention to my surroundings at all in this state, despite the fact that there was literally a bullet hole in the front door I just came out of. It's not good. I remember checking to see what car I was getting picked up in, and was only able to pick out the fact that it was a black sedan. Soon after stepping outside, a black sedan pulls up to the curve and starts rolling down the window, so I step forward. Before this man even spoke, I could feel something was wrong. He had an expression like he was tearing me apart with just his eyes. After seeing that look, it gave me a new meaning to the word predator to describe a criminal, because I then knew what it felt like to be prey. He basically barks at me, "I'm your Uber driver!" This was the second red flag that somehow made its way through my brain. Normally, Uber drivers just roll down the window and say, "Fossil fuel 12," or any version of that, but always including your name. I think I just stared at him for a second, my brain slowly piecing together the situation I was potentially in, and I asked him, "What's my name?" He immediately is enraged and starts screaming about how he doesn't have time for this and just get in the car, etc., etc., etc. I don't think I've ever sobered up so fast in my life. I'm completely panicking. Obviously, this wasn't my Uber. Quickly checking the license plate, I immediately see it's not a match. Meanwhile, this guy is still screaming at me, and I have absolutely no idea what to do. If I bolt in either direction, this guy could easily outrun me or have a weapon. I'm also pretty sure at this point that if he's trying to nab a random girl off the street, he must have a weapon of some sort. I can't run back into the apartment door right behind me since it locks behind you, and I don't have the keys nor the time to unlock it. Running towards the back door would do nothing as well, as he's idling right by the mouth of the driveway towards the back parking lot, and again, I would have to take the time to find the right keys and get in. If I screamed, I'm not exactly in the type of neighborhood where someone would try to be a vigilante. And I can still hear the music radiating from my friend's third-floor apartment. I knew they wouldn't hear me. Also, it's 4 a.m. and absolutely no one is around. People talk a lot about how they either sprint into action or freeze. But I felt incapable of doing either. It was the absolute worst feeling I've ever felt in my life. Everything in me wanted to run, but I felt that if I did, it would be the end of me. But if I kept standing there staring in shock at this screaming man, the result would be the same. From when he started screaming at me to this point, I'm guessing only 20 seconds had passed by. Just as he's looking like he's getting ready to get out of the car, another black sedan pulls up right behind him. Checking the license plate as quickly as I can, I realize it's my actual Uber. I make a full sprint to the car, really only like 6 steps, and throw myself in, screaming at my real Uber driver, "What's my name?" The poor dude looks terrified, but responds with my name quickly, to which I reply, "Get me out of here! That man's trying to kidnap me!" If I was in this Uber driver's position, I think I would be too shocked to react as quickly as he did. But my dude flew out of there, offered to call the cops for me, which I declined and now regret, and then walked me to the front door of my apartment, ensuring I got inside safely. Truly an incredible human being. You can rest easy knowing he got the fattest tip my college student bank account would allow for, although he deserves so much more.